Big budgets, access to iconic characters, and backing from well-known publishers. Who needs all of that when you can have indie games? As we all know by now, big budget does not always equate to quality. No shade to Assassin's Creed Unity, you tried. With smaller teams and less money at stake, indie games often take the opportunity to explore the possibilities in gaming and have experimented with design, story, and gameplay. This has resulted in plenty of fantastic games. Today's video is brought to you by NordVPN. Use the link in the description and save 75% on a 3-year plan. Switch to NordVPN to protect yourself today. Here are our top 10 indie games. But first, like, subscribe, and hit that bell. The artwork, the colors, the soundtrack. 3 very good reasons you should start playing Rime right now. This puzzle game is beautifully crafted, and it's obvious that a lot of love and care was put into it. Difficult the game is not, but that's one of its charms. Players can course through the game almost mindlessly, exploring areas and piecing together a touching story. The gameplay as a result is a charming sensory experience, with an almost cathartic end that really wraps everything up in a satisfying but bittersweet end. We can't say much more about this game without spoiling the story, but take it from us, Rime is worth your time. It barely costs a dime and you'll get through it fine. Folks, do yourself a favor and go play Rime. Perhaps you've heard of Phil Fish. After a Twitter rant gone wrong, Fish cancelled the second installment of his highly successful game Fez. Why were fans so upset? Because Fez, to put it simply, is a very well-designed game. Fez plays like a 2D platformer, but it's also 3D. There are puzzles and plenty of things to explore. The world is large, but not too large. Puzzle areas are small, but not too small. And the pixelated aesthetic adds to the experience of the game. Overall, Fez is balanced in all the right ways. Can't solve a particular puzzle or having difficulty moving from one area to another? Maybe look at it all from a different perspective. No, this isn't like Farmville, the addictive Facebook game that sent us so many invites. We considered deleting Facebook and retreating to an isolated hut in the Himalayas, where we could finally live in peace with our goat Berta. Although the two games follow a similar concept, farming, they're worlds apart. For starters, Stardew Valley is actually good. The game is farming, mining, fishing, going to markets, and interacting with the townspeople. The characters you stumble across are fun and actually have distinct personalities. Take Linus, for example. Linus is the game's token crazy guy. He lives in a tent outside the town, rummages through garbage, and is delighted when you gift him spring onions. Do you live in the city working a desk job? Have you ever stopped to smell your neighbor's roses and instead inhaled fresh, hot bus fumes? Just move to the picturesque countryside farm you inherited from your grandfather. Or, if your grandfather doesn't secretly have a large plot of land with a farm, escape to Stardew Valley. Here you can enjoy the countryside without having to physically participate in the back-breaking labor that spoils the fun of farming. It's a win-win if you ask us. What happens when you combine a biblical tale with the creators of Super Meat Boy? We present to you The Binding of Isaac. This wonderfully freaky indie game is challenging with a lot of different monsters, items, and upgrades. Players play as Isaac, a kid who jumps into a basement when his mother believes she's hearing the voice of God, telling her to kill her son. The Binding of Isaac is weird, twisted, and more than a little creepy, but we guarantee you'll enjoy playing through the various basement stages. Gameplay is rough, and items dropped by monsters may help or work against you. Mysterious pills, for example, can give you your health back, or ruthlessly take half your life. Still, we promise this game is enjoyable. This isn't some genius artistic masterpiece. Everything is pixelated like crazy. Combat is basic, and your primary objective is to run either to the left or to the right. But what this game is brilliance to the highest degree. The game is fast-paced and infuriating. Players are unable to progress unless they've stabbed their opponents, at which point they can move forward only to see their opponent respawn again a little further on. If the opponent stabs the player, then they have the chance to run in the opposite direction. Whoever crosses all the stages first wins. Essentially, it's a pixelated game of catch, with a continuous procession of "you're it, no you're it, no you're it." But Nidhogg is more than a game. It's a battle where Stickman must fight Stickman with grace, elegance, and wit. Nidhogg requires you to summon forth your inner knight and joust your way to the bitter end. Did you win? As the winner, you get the satisfaction of a victory run. Onlookers cheer. They burst into a spontaneous wave, celebrating your hard work. You stand there, needing a moment to take it all in. You won. You did that. And then a flying unicorn worm swoops down and devours you whole, swallowed by the Nidhogg, the ultimate honor. Has there ever been anything more thrilling than passport control? Of course not. Immigration is the pinnacle of excitement. The papers, the stamps, the queues. Who doesn't love border control? In Papers, Please, you play from the perspective of border security, tasked with approving or denying people's entries into the fictional country of Arstotzka. Glory to Arstotzka. During the game, you're informed of the political unrest between countries surrounding Arstotzka, and you're rewarded for the amount of cases you process correctly each day. Your objective is to process as many cases as you can correctly, so that you can feed your family and not fall into crippling debt. Every decision you make impacts the storyline or your salary, and there are 20 possible endings, each more riveting than the last. So far, this description doesn't do the game justice. But believe it or not, this game makes immigration fun. Any game that can accomplish that has worked miracles. We would like to take this opportunity to give a shout out to Georgi Kostova, the old man who repeatedly tries to enter the country with awful forgeries. No matter how often you deny that man, he always returns with a positive attitude, unlike some people. We appreciate you and your sketchy ways, Georgie. Journey is a game in which players guide a small roped figure through a desert toward a mountain. Play this game not for puzzles or sweaty controller boss fights, but for the meditative experience. Playing such a small figure while wandering through a vast expanse of desert feels solitary at first. The world feels so impossibly large. This is where co-op comes in. Journey is a wonderful example of how co-op was integrated into the game with the intention of adding to the overall experience. When online players can stumble upon other players and choose whether to proceed together or carry on by themselves. A soft chime is the only possible form of auditory communication, and there's no way to get a written message over to your partner. What's more, players have no idea who they're playing with. A companion's name is only revealed at the end when you've completed your journey. This is a game that's almost impossible to talk about without overdoing it on the positive adjectives. So we'll leave it at this. Journey has received several awards for its audio and visuals and has won several Game of the Year awards. It's also been listed as one of the greatest games of all time. Inside is one of those games we're going to cryptically talk about, admiring the game's melancholy aesthetics, for example, while carefully dancing around any potential spoilers, because this is a game that needs to be fully experienced. Here's what we can say. Inside is a fantastic game with a dark vibe and heart-stopping moments. It's a puzzle game that forces players to learn through trial and error. In other words, you'll probably die a lot before you figure out what you're supposed to do. The game's design is haunting, and the music, or lack thereof, will make you suspicious of every sudden move. It's also definitely worth every penny. Here's what we can't say. At the end, when you jump into the and then we couldn't believe that, and did the crazy, right? Convinced? There's a reason this game has almost flawless reviews. It's a clever Metroidvania with enough tricky boss battles to keep you on your toes. Underneath the small dirt-mouthed town is an extensive labyrinth that the player can explore freely. There's plenty of tunnels and exciting places to discover, and the game never feels tedious. Some areas are inaccessible until the player has upgraded their moveset, but the progress through the many tunnels feels natural because of it. The gameplay itself is challenging, and every enemy requires a different strategy. Despite this, you never feel like the game is actively against you, and when you die, it isn't the failure of mechanics or unfair disadvantage, it was just your own incompetence. One of the things that makes Hollow Knight so satisfying to play is its risk and reward system. Your little knight has a soul meter that slowly fills up when you hit enemies. You can use the collected souls to cast spells or to heal, so even when you're on your last life, it's in your best interest to attack as much as possible, so that you might regain enough souls to heal or cast the finishing blow. Hollow Knight has engaging lore, an adorable protagonist, and feels like you've been dropped into Tim Burton's daydream. What more could you want? This is a weird one. In a game that feels like Pokemon and classic RPG had a child, you play Frisk, a kid who falls into the underground where monsters dwell. There are certain paths you can take while playing the game. Are you going to spare the creatures you come across, or are you going to be a genocidal monster? The choice is yours. Whatever path you choose, there are consequences for your actions. Consequences that cannot be undone, even after resetting the game. Undertale doesn't just break the fourth wall, it completely shatters it. Choosing to reset the game after a particularly murderous run, and the game remembers. The game reminds you of your actions and the guilt you felt for killing Toril. Don't blame the game, blame yourself. Undertale is filled with well thought out and quirky details that really complete the experience. Every little nook and cranny is stuffed with fun. You can participate in a snail race, for example. Here, you're instructed to press your Z button repeatedly to make your snail move forward. Except that when you do as instructed, the creature spontaneously combusts. All that pressure to succeed really got to her, the game tells you. Oh yes, this game has a funny bone, and his name is Sans. We'll let ourselves out now. There you have it, folks. 10 great indie games we recommend you try out ASAP. Let us know which indie games you've enjoyed playing.